A few years ago, Raymond and I tried to create a Leica Q2 out of camera parts that were not related to a Leica Q2. It actually worked pretty nicely, honestly, but then we bought a Leica Q2 anyway, along with the Fujifilm X100V, which is another powerful fixed lens camera. Why did we do this? Why would we want to turn one camera into another? For the both of us, it's a lot about disruption. It's a necessary part of my creative process to mix things up. I mean, after over a decade away from film, I've just purchased a Nikon F6 and a bunch of film. It's impractical, but it's an example of mixing up that process and keeping me off balance. Posting weekly for over 11 years here on YouTube, as well as social media, it's easy for me to get into a rut, and once I'm in that, it's hard to climb out. So I've learned to preemptively be disruptive with my creative tools and process. And that brings us to the 28mm Ultron. If you are new here, hello, my name is Leigh, and like I said, I share videos every week on any topic related to cameras and photography, or anytime you might have a camera in your hand, really. I even have entire courses available where I teach the basics of photography or about different genres of photography. I'll add a link to learn more about that in the description, but subscribe if my videos sound interesting to you. This lens is an M-mount lens, which is a Leica mount. It dates back to 1954, and today Leica uses it on their M line of digital cameras. I don't own a single M-mount camera, but I use this lens often. The M-mount has a few things going for it when it comes to adapting to modern mirrorless cameras. One, because of the flange distance, which is the distance between the lens mount and the sensor, M-mount lenses can be adapted to most mirrorless interchangeable lens cameras today. I have used this lens on Sony, Nikon, Fujifilm, Leica, and Panasonic cameras. 2. M-mount lenses are not controlled electronically by the camera. You lose nothing when using these inexpensive adapters that will allow you to use your M-mount lens on non-Leica bodies. You lose nothing because there are no electronics in this lens to begin with. You use it the same on a Sony camera as you would on a Nikon or any other brand. And 3, it's light and simple. This isn't a 22-element lens that corrects for every possible optical flaw. The designs are basic, engineered to get great results without any heroics of optical physics. No LCD readout or switches or dials on the lens. You put it on the camera and you shoot. This Ultron is an f2 lens, yet it's still a fraction of the size of some of our more modern lenses with similar focal length and maximum aperture. One thing that I want to make very clear: M-mount lenses are manual focus lenses. You're slowing down, you're taking your time, and likely taking advantage of common mirrorless features, such as focus peaking, to assure that you're going to get sharp images. However, we do have this Megadap adapter for our Nikon Z7 that actually moves the lens toward and away the sensor to give you autofocus with a lens that has no autofocus mechanics. It still slows you down though, because the autofocus is not very fast with it. But it's been interesting for us, a further disruption in my process. And it brings some new life to our small but growing M-mount collection. Incidentally, we've seen that there is a similar adapter for Sony mirrorless cameras as well. Whether it's being used with the autofocus adapter for a Nikon or Sony camera, or as a manual focus lens on virtually any camera, lenses like this, because of that compactness and simplicity, bring me back to the basics of study, compose, and then shoot. And they have me thinking about timing, light, and location of that next shot. And the next day I can be attaching a giant, wonderful super telephoto zoom with literally 24 lens elements. That's the flexibility here, and why you might consider something like this lens for your camera without purchasing a dedicated minimal camera or two like the Q2 or the X100V. Okay, we've nailed down the why of this lens, but now it's time for the results. We've always been impressed with this lens, though it doesn't have the unbelievable edge-to-edge sharpness that I have seen on the newest wide aperture lenses by, say, Sigma or Sony. It does very well, especially considering the price. I will link to this lens in the description so that you can see how much it is where you are. We've used this for astrophotography, for miles and miles of landscapes. And with the wide aperture and stealthy size, it's always been right at home at any museum that we've been to. The f2 aperture and overall wide angle have been great for astrophotography. And one thing that we've learned about this lens for astro is that turning the focus ring all the way to infinity until it stops gives you the sharpest stars. And while that sounds intuitive, with nearly every other lens that we've used for astro, we set to infinity, but then dial it back until the stars are the sharpest. This takes an extra few moments when setting up for astro, and more importantly, introduces a possibility for error. While with the 28mm Ultron, you just set it until the ring stops and then set up your astro shot. It's by no means a deal breaker for other lenses that aren't like this, but it's just a small thing that can make a cold, remote night of astrophotography that much smoother. And if you aren't interested in pixel peeping the corners for perfectly pinpoint round stars, you'll certainly be happy with the quality. We've definitely been happy with it. I do want to be clear on a couple of things. First, we purchased this lens on Amazon a few years ago. There's no sponsorship or anything like that. We just wanted to dabble in the M mount, and we were pleased. Also, I'm not telling anyone to go out and buy this lens or a gaggle of other M mount lenses. However, if you are longing for some simplicity in your photography, and if you do like to explore the basics, maybe some manual focus, the M mount options out there are just perfect for it. And if you change systems later on, with different adapters, those M-mount lenses will work just the same as they did on your former system. M-mount lenses, when you look at them that way, they can last for generations. Let's turn it around now and talk in those comments down below. Is this something that you've tried? Or maybe you use Voigtlander or other M-mount lenses often. Or maybe there's another mount that you've used across brands, like the Nikon F-mount, which for similar physical reasons as the M mount can be used across many different mirrorless brands. Or maybe you've done something a little bit more from left field. Let me know. Also, if there's something that you do to intentionally disrupt and reshuffle your creativity, let me know that too. I'm always looking for new ideas to keep myself challenged and scrambled up and off balance. Please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you for watching.